I can't believe it's been around 19 years since we last saw a traditional 2D Metroid that wasn't necessarily a remake or a spin-off for consoles. At the helm of this brand new title is none other than Mercury Steam, dare I say an already kind of renowned developer in terms of the Metroidvania genre, as they worked on the Castlevania Lords of Shadow games and Metroid Samus Returns on 3DS. So let's see, with their chains being unleashed, if they can really knock it out of the park with the latest entry in the Metroid franchise, or nope, there's no or, it's perfect. It's genuinely the best Metroidvania title I've played in years. Let's talk about it. The game starts right after the events of Metroid Fusion. If you don't know the full plot of the 2D Metroid history, don't worry, the game will go over a quick recap for those that are uninformed. We land over on planet ZDR as we're in search of a lone X-parasite, and a distress signal that shows a group of highly functional robots called an EMI has been disappearing off the radar. Samus now has to fly into planet ZDR, clean house, and delete the remaining X-parasite to protect the galaxy and keep everything safe. They did an incredible job blending some top-tier cutscene work and in-game storytelling that sets up for one of the most high-octane mystery sci-fi thrill rides I've played in quite some time. And the story has an epic climactic payoff to top it all off. The isolation and environmental design really helps sew the story together, and of course that ties into the game's So not only does Metroid Dread have some killer cutscenes, the game also runs at a mostly smooth 60 FPS. Now that in and of itself is a bit surprising considering it's the Nintendo Switch and they're not really known for frame rates, but what really boggles my mind is how darn good the game looks despite it trying to hit its 60 FPS frame rate. In the first area alone, you could tell that Metroid Dread is dripping with personality and a chilling atmosphere. It made each area feel so memorable and always left a powerful impression on me as I moved throughout the world. Each zone definitely felt like its own contained thing while still at the same time feeling interconnected, which is a pretty hard feat to pull off in a lot of Metroidvania titles. They really make sure that it feels like we're traveling this topsy-turvy planet and we're slowly but surely going to bend and break the rules off as we gain multiple power-ups that literally rip the environment apart and of course reach those coveted upgrades. Now, the backgrounds have a ton of moving parts that do a great job of making sure no place gets too repetitive and every single instance and zone feels unique. And Mercury Steam, these guys just get it, man. You move to a new area or location and each section feels like this tiny multi-layered interconnected story. Those forgotten Chozo bases of Ataria, the mining station that's a lava wonderland in Kataris, and a watery grave that awaits you in Burnia. All of them start off as one thing, but with power-ups and plot reasons, they slowly but surely get more and more fleshed out, and new environments that these are introduced to make them a lot more fun to explore. I think that's what really sells the exploration of this Metroid title a lot more than any other games that I've played in the Metroidvania genre. The amount of times the devs took risk and completely change up the environments when Samus interacts with the tiniest things, rerouting thermal energy, things of that nature can all have some pretty big changes for all of the areas in the map. It makes it feel like exploration truly is seamless, and it goes a long way in selling that you are truly on one interconnected planet rather than a subset of disjointed zones. As for the enemy design, among other things, it's once again a bang up job. Enemies, especially the bosses, are as grotesque, otherworldly, and straight up robotic as they ever could be, each filling me with this strange cosmic dread when taking them on, and the gameplay bundle with each encounter is sublime, although we'll touch on the gameplay portion shortly. The real icing on the cake of an already outstanding presentation is easily those animations. Mercury Steam just really understands Samus as a character, and they did an exquisite, borderline perfect job bringing her to life in Dread. Samus is the classic stoic, veteran bounty hunter just clocking in for another day at work when she arrives at planet ZDR. Those opening moments where Samus is sliding through cracks and the likes instead of curling into a ball and slowly crawling off or looking for that power-up, that's when I knew they were doing something truly special. And all those tiny interactions like Samus putting her hand on the wall as she peeks through holes or just to give herself a stop from going too fast. Touches like that really sell her as a character for me. And my gosh, that first boss fight is so insanely well executed with all the melee counter animations. The way she literally doesn't flinch once at bosses when they gnaw and snap at her. That's the stuff that really sells how experienced Samus is as a bounty hunter and just how easygoing she is when it comes to taking on these fights. Then we have the soundtrack, and I gotta say, it's surprisingly awesome. It captures those classic Metroid atmospheric sounds while still staying fresh, and truth be told, it loves to actually stand out in the game. Bombastic drums will start pounding, and homages to previous Metroid melodies will play, and the music even has a bit of a dynamic vibe when entering certain areas like the Emmy zones, where it straight up just becomes an aliens horror film, right down to the droning radar beep. It wears its cinematic homages on its sleeve, and the game truly benefits from that. So if you couldn't tell, yeah, I personally think the presentation is out of this universe. From the smooth, gorgeous 60 FPS visuals to the ultra slick and shockingly brutal melee takedowns and the slick slide animations and haunting cinematic score, all of it does a great job in ushering in a new era of Metroid for both returning and new players alike. Now as for that gameplay, Samus has never felt this good. She's so fluent, her run speed is just right, sliding through all those tiny little gaps and stuff is great, jumping around from place to place and being able to hang off little ledges and pull yourself up if you barely make a jump, all of that stuff makes platforming extremely fun to pull off. As for gunplay, the shooting and running definitely works well, and you can sprint and hold diagonal while firing at enemies or charging shots. That's always a classic. And of course we have the good old free aim mode at the cost of losing some movement, so Samus can hunker down and aim all around the screen to hit her shots. No matter what you want to do to dispatch your enemies, they all have their checks and balances. If you want to go for the more movement based stuff, including sliding while shooting your gun, that's obviously an option. That being said, free aim will become second nature to you and it doesn't hinder your movement too much, so be ready to be schmoovin' while hitting some nasty shots as you run through levels. The thing that really sold the gameplay for me and brings it all to home base was the melee counter system. This is by all accords the parry in those Soulsborne games that we all love to abuse, and almost every enemy in this game can be clapped up with a well-timed counter, and the best part is it can be popped anywhere, anytime, taking on all these creatures out as they explode into rockets and energy refills. That's never going to get old. However, that feeling of being able to sprint through enemies and dispatch your foes with these stops dead in its tracks when you walk into an Emmy zone. The game fills the screen with this grayscale film grain effect, and it hits me with a bunch of unease as a tiny radar beep goes off constantly to keep you shook. And these Emmys, they don't really like to see with eyes, they like listening to you with the audio you make, and it becomes your worst foe throughout the game. You land hard on a surface or shoot down a trip mine, you're gonna have a sound wave go off that might alert an Emmy robot who will not hesitate to put Samus in an instant kill state if you are caught. This sets up for a very slow, deliberate, and painful cat and mouse chase as you try to tiptoe through many areas, and when you are eventually spotted, it becomes a mad dash sprint to quickly juke and dodge as Samus tries her best to reach the exit before getting caught. It's terrifying, it's extremely brutal, and I love it. Oh, and also if you're bold and want to practice some reflex training, you can indeed even parry the Emmy if he catches you. However, it's only for a brief moment, so when you slide underneath him, you better hit the floor running. As the game goes on, you're going to get more and more upgrades that buff Samus up and help you discover various secrets, health and missile improvements, along with all the other classic Metroid things. Despite backtracking being the game, it feels a lot more unique than other instances in Metroidvanias. You're always changing something or making small adjustments to the grander interconnected world, so going back to previous areas and of course with new power-ups and abilities goes a long way in making each area definitely feel kind of tailored to whatever Samus is going to pick up and what Samus is bringing to the table. Lastly, we have those boss fights, a truly constant skill check for Samus to complete, always throwing in something new to put your abilities to the test. They're also very cinematic, multi-layered, and extremely stylish when it comes to brawling the big boss. They can get pretty hard, but with practice and patience, you're gonna blow through a lot of these enemies with ease. As for gripes, I actually only have two major things that made the game just a tiny bit unfun for me. The first was using the control stick to platform and jump around. I just wish I could have the option to use the D-pad. I know it's used for a couple of abilities, but it would have been nice as that's what I'm comfortable with. And then number two, the game soft locked on me during the final boss, which if you know anything about the difficulty level of this game, was extremely unfair and unfun to go through. That was not cool. Won't show anything because, you know, it's the final boss. I kind of blurred it out, but you could clearly see this homie ain't moving and he is not doing his attack strings or anything at all. It was very frustrating. Other than that, Metroid Dread is a game I instantly wanted to start up and replay the second credits started rolling. Everything in the game feels perfectly crafted and injected with a big old dose of love in Metroid, and it's really hard not to also fall in love with the game as the developers definitely cared a lot about making it. Dread is easily a contender for Game of the Year 2021, and it's definitely putting Samus Aran and the Metroid franchise back on the map, and I hope it sells well and many give it a play. Thank you all so much for watching my review on Metroid Dread. If you guys enjoyed this type of content and have any thoughts on Metroid Dread of your own, please comment down below as it goes a long way in helping out the channel, and if you want to see more, like, comment, and subscribe really helps out. I wish you all a very wonderful day, make sure you guys stay safe out there, and of course, I'll see you on the next video. Have a good one, peace.